Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Abona Tennis Online Coaching Podcast. This is your coach, JY, where I try to help junior tennis players and their parents navigate this journey, understand the most important things they need to be working on, and the best structure they need to have in place to help them maximize their potential. And I'm glad to be doing another podcast. It's been a while, and if I haven't been recording a podcast and putting stuff out there, it's usually because I'm on the court at tournaments, traveling, and that's certainly what I've been doing now that school's been out. Kids have been able to have more time on the court. I just got back from some time in South Florida, putting some work in there, a term before that, and finally got a little bit of downtime before getting back out on the road to some tournaments. So if anyone's going to be at that Greensboro in next weekend, the weekend of June 28th, let me know. But really happy to finally start talking about something that I've been seeing in the development plans I've been putting together for some players. And the number one thing that's been showing up in these kids' development plans has been that they need to improve their athleticism, movement, and strength. All right. Tennis is a movement sport. Or should I say, high-performance tennis is a movement sport. And there's something I'm going to add in that's a very important part of that in a little bit. But high-performance tennis is a movement sport. At the beginner level, okay, you have to have the ball fed to you, right at you. You can't move too much because if not, it just becomes too much to handle. You have to understand some stroke mechanics before you understand how to move to balls and all of that. So beginner tennis is way more technical. But once you get into the high-performance space, and especially if that's your goal as a beginner and you want to move into that space, movement, strength, athleticism, footwork becomes the number one thing. Because I don't care how good your technique is if you can't move to the ball properly, because you're not going to be able to use that beautiful technique. You're not going to be able to get there in position. You're going to be jammed or late, or your legs aren't underneath you. So everything starts with movement once you start getting into the high performance space. Now, the one thing I got to add in within that movement part, above all of this, is always going to be the vision of the player. Okay, they have to be able to understand the ball that's coming to them so that they can then understand what footwork pattern, where do I go, how do I have to move to this ball, right? So the vision is so important, and it's not talked about enough, because that's something that if you don't have that, well, then you can't move to the ball well, because even if you're really fast and athletic, maybe you're only fast and athletic when the ball is being fed in a spot where you exactly know where it's going. But in tennis, it's never exactly where we think it's going to be. We have to make some interpretation and adjustments, and that's where I think coach practice match play is so important. Coach point play is so important, because that's where the coach points out, like, hey, you got to pay attention to this because that tells you the ball is going here, or hey, you did this, but you moved to the ball stepping in, but it should have been open stance because look where you were, and all of that stuff. That's where they help the players identify what they're seeing and how to improve their vision. So that's an important part to all this movement. Jose Higueras, one of the best coaches of all time, always talks about how the vision is the number one thing. So definitely the vision. But once you are starting to understand, where the ball is going, your movement, your strength, and your athleticism is so important in the high performance space. You not only have to be able to be fast enough to get there, you have to be strong enough to load your legs, accelerate your hips and back and rotation with power. You have to be able to absorb the fast-paced contact. And then you have to be able to not just do it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, one match, two match. No, you need to do it for a whole tournament. And a lot of times I've seen players break down because they're just not strong enough or fast enough. And of course, the technique will break down. And that's what a lot of people will want to fix at first. But if they're not strong enough or fast enough or fit enough, they can't get there properly enough times. So you can't just fix the technique without fixing the movement and the strength and the athleticism. They actually go hand in hand for that type of shot. So that's why a coach has to make sure that player is doing the right things in the gym, in their fitness side of things, to complement the technical footwork stuff that they are doing as they move out towards balls. Okay, so I would rather have a player that has not so perfect technique, but is an unbelievable mover and understands all the footwork patterns they need to use to get there and how to take balls on the rise and how to move back, than somebody who is absolutely perfect technically, but a little slow, maybe not in the best shape, and breaks down like that. Because they're going to misfire the most, because what's the opponent trying to do? They're putting them on the move. Okay, so if you can't hit on the move and you can't sustain it over the course of multiple matches, you're not going to be able to sustain a high level of tennis. The best players in the world are the fittest players in the world, not the most beautiful technical players of all time. And I think tennis gets confused with golf because everyone thinks about the stroke mechanics of the sport. And I think it's so interesting whenever I see a technical analysis breakdown of a stroke when it's a player literally hitting down the center, only hitting cross courts. Yes, you can make technical adjustments there, but I want to see them on the move. I want to see them over the course of 2 hours. I want to see them when they don't know exactly where the ball is going to go. Are they able to read, react, and move fast out there and get there and put themselves in the right position? All right. Anytime you're just hitting down the center, okay, yes, there are technical things to work on, but that's not the sport you're playing in during competition. So we have to make sure that kids are developing their athleticism really young. That's one of the biggest reasons why playing multiple sports helps out a lot of players, because if you're playing soccer and basketball and all this, then you're learning all these different movements that when you do want to play tennis full time, you're athletic. And that's why it makes it a lot easier for players that are athletic and have played multiple sports to then be great tennis players, because they're just a great athlete. It wasn't so much that they played other sports, because if they would have played stationary sports where they didn't move much, or they played a position in that sport, like, for example, if you're a goalie in soccer, but you're also a tennis player, you're not going to be as great a mover on the tennis court as you are as a forward or a middle. I forget the positions, but if someone plays right wing or in the middle of the field in soccer, moving back and forth, because that child's moving a lot more throughout their life, they're going to be better athletes. So when they go play tennis, they're used to moving a lot more and taking different angles to shots and all that. So it's the movement that matters. It's the athlete that matters. So young kids, the younger you start making them an athlete, the better. Now, I'm not saying, especially when it comes to the strength side of things, we have to throw strength on, like we have to throw weights on their backs and all this stuff to make them so strong. Like, no, everyone has a base they have to start from, and they have to work themselves up from there. So body weight training, then resistance bands, then med balls, then weights. Okay. And even then, you can do a lot of great stuff as you're older, just doing body weight and med balls. So then when you become a teenager and more, then you can start throwing more weights on your back and all that stuff. But we got to start creating better athletes as opposed to the most technically sound players. There's also another thing. This was a great message that was said to me recently by Brad Stein, the coach of Tommy Paul, that he said, you can only be as mentally tough as you are physically. Because once you get physically tired, right, you're not going to be able to move the ball as well. You're not going to be able to hang in there in tough moments because you're so tired. Your body's just hurting. It's exhausted. So when you're in great shape, you can continue to play long matches throughout tournaments. You feel the will, the energy, the passion to fight because you have the energy to fight. You have the movement to fight. You're ready to go out there all day. If you're not ready to go out there all day because it's too hot and you're getting tired, hard to be mentally tough. So think about it. If you have the most beautiful technique in the world, but you can't stay out there for 2.5 hours because you get tired moving too much, your technique isn't going to make you mentally tough. It's going to be your fitness, your work ethic, the time you put in the gym. So yes, build some sort of base of technique. And then as soon as you get that, you got to start moving. You got to start running. So kids have to find time to get in the gym, to work with a fitness trainer, to also do footwork drills after practice on the court, shadow swinging, doing all types of stuff, med ball stuff, and all that. So movement, athleticism, strength, so important. Now, obviously, the vision comes before that. That comes with different types of repetitions, unstructured match play, unstructured point play where the coach walks them through. And then technique comes after that in the high performance space. Look at the Pro Tour. There's a bunch of people that aren't technically perfect. There's a bunch of things that we would not teach our kids technically, and yet somehow they're the best players in the world. Why? They're the best athletes. So make sure you're taking care of that area in your game. Parents, if your kids aren't doing the right amount of fitness or they're not doing any at all, get them started. All right? Good luck out there. And as always, reach out to me with any questions. Thanks.